Imagine this. It's 7:15 on a quiet Monday morning. A 54-year-old father finishes breakfast, grabs his car keys, kisses his wife goodbye, and heads to work like he has thousands of times before. He doesn't smoke, he walks every evening. He had his annual physical just 3 months ago. His doctor smiled as he reviewed the lab results. "Everything looks good," he said. "Your cholesterol is normal." 3 hours later, that same man is lying on the floor of his office, struggling to breathe as crushing pain spreads across his chest. Minutes later, doctors confirm the diagnosis: a heart attack. How could this happen? How could someone with normal cholesterol suffer one of the most serious cardiovascular emergencies? For decades, we've been taught a simple message: high cholesterol causes heart attacks. It's a statement repeated in television commercials, health magazines, social media videos, and even routine conversations between friends. But modern cardiovascular research tells a more complicated story. In hospitals around the world, cardiologists continue seeing something that surprises even experienced physicians. Many patients rushed into emergency rooms with heart attacks never had dangerously high cholesterol levels. Some were even told they were at low risk. So, have we misunderstood heart disease, or have we been looking at only one piece of a much larger puzzle? Tonight, we're going beyond the numbers printed on a cholesterol report. Because understanding what really happens inside your arteries may change the way you think about heart health forever. Stay with me. Because one invisible process we'll uncover later in this documentary may begin damaging blood vessels years before cholesterol ever becomes the main concern. Chapter 1. The Villain. We all learn to fear. For nearly half a century, cholesterol has been the face of heart disease. It's easy to understand why. Researchers discovered that fatty plaques found inside blocked arteries contained cholesterol. Over time, this led to a straightforward conclusion: more cholesterol, more plaque, more heart attacks. It seemed logical, and in many cases, it was true. High levels of LDL cholesterol, often called bad cholesterol, are associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, and lowering elevated LDL has been shown to reduce risk for many people. That science remains important. But here's where the story becomes far more interesting. Imagine you're investigating a house fire. When firefighters arrive, they find wooden beams burning. Does that mean the wood started the fire? Not necessarily. The wood may have helped the fire grow, but something else struck the first match. Modern cardiology has begun asking a similar question. If cholesterol is present inside plaque, could something else be setting the process in motion? That single question has reshaped years of cardiovascular research. And the answers are changing how many experts think about prevention. Because cholesterol doesn't float through your bloodstream making random decisions. Something influences where it settles. Something determines whether arteries remain healthy or slowly begin to change. And that something may surprise you. Chapter 2. The silent damage no one can feel. Here's one of the most remarkable facts about heart disease. It usually doesn't begin with pain. There are no flashing warning lights, no alarm sounds, no obvious symptoms. Inside your arteries, tiny changes can develop over many years without you noticing anything unusual. Think of the smooth inner lining of an artery like freshly polished glass. Healthy, flexible, strong, blood flows effortlessly across its surface. But life's everyday pressures begin leaving microscopic scratches: high blood pressure, smoking, poor blood sugar control, long-term inflammation, lack of sleep, chronic stress. These factors can gradually irritate the delicate inner lining of blood vessels. At first, the damage is incredibly small, far too small to notice, far too small to cause symptoms. Yet your body notices immediately. Like a construction crew rushing to repair a cracked road, your immune system responds. Specialized cells travel to the injured area. Their mission is simple: protect the artery, repair the damage. But sometimes that repair process doesn't end the way nature intended. And this is exactly where cholesterol enters the story. Not necessarily as the criminal, no, but perhaps as an unexpected accomplice. Chapter 3. The difference between presence and cause. Imagine rainwater collecting in a pothole. When you see the puddle, it's easy to think the water created the hole. But that's backwards. The hole existed first. The water simply collected where damage already existed. Many researchers use a similar analogy when explaining plaque formation. LDL cholesterol travels through everyone's bloodstream. It performs essential functions throughout the body, including helping build cell membranes and produce important hormones. Without cholesterol, human life wouldn't exist. The problem begins when cholesterol particles become trapped inside areas of damaged artery walls. Once there, the immune system recognizes something isn't right. Inflammation increases. More immune cells arrive. The area slowly changes. Year after year, the plaque can grow. Notice something important. Cholesterol is certainly involved. But researchers now understand that artery health, inflammation, blood pressure, metabolism, genetics, and lifestyle all interact together rather than acting independently. Heart disease isn't caused by one single factor. It's the result of many small processes working together over time. That's why two people with similar cholesterol levels can experience very different outcomes. One develops significant artery disease. The other never does. So, what explains the difference? That's the question scientists have spent years trying to answer. And their discoveries have uncovered several hidden risk factors that rarely receive the same attention as cholesterol. One of them is so important that some cardiologists now consider it an essential part of understanding cardiovascular risk, yet millions of people have never heard its name. In the next chapter, we'll uncover the invisible drivers behind heart attacks, including inflammation, insulin resistance, and a little-known blood marker that may reveal risks a standard cholesterol test can miss, because normal cholesterol doesn't always mean normal risk. And that's where the real story begins. At this point, one thing has become clear. Heart disease isn't usually the result of a single bad decision. It isn't created by one unhealthy meal. It isn't determined by one blood test. Instead, it's often the result of several invisible processes working together over time, which raises an important question. If cholesterol isn't acting alone, what else is happening inside the arteries? To answer that, we have to look beyond cholesterol and meet the silent partners that can quietly influence heart health long before symptoms ever appear. Chapter 4. The fire inside your arteries. Imagine walking through a forest after a small campfire has been left burning. At first, it's barely noticeable. A little smoke, a few glowing embers, nothing dramatic. But if those embers continue burning day after day, eventually, they weaken everything around them. Researchers often compare chronic inflammation to something similar. Unlike the inflammation that helps heal a cut or fight an infection, chronic low-grade inflammation can quietly persist for years. You can't usually feel it. You can't see it in the mirror. Yet, inside the body, it may slowly affect blood vessels. When artery walls remain irritated over time, they become more vulnerable. That creates an environment where cholesterol particles are more likely to become trapped, immune cells become more active, and plaque becomes more unstable. In other words, inflammation doesn't replace cholesterol in the story. It changes the environment in which cholesterol behaves. That's why many cardiologists now look at heart disease as both a cholesterol issue and an inflammation issue. Many people know their cholesterol number. Few know anything about high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, often called hsCRP. This blood marker doesn't measure cholesterol. Instead, it gives doctors clues about inflammation occurring somewhere in the body. It's not a heart attack test, and by itself, it cannot predict who will or won't develop heart disease. But when doctors evaluate overall cardiovascular risk, hsCRP can provide another piece of the puzzle, especially when considered alongside cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, smoking history, and family history. Think of cholesterol as one chapter in a book. Inflammation is another. To understand the whole story, you need more than a single page. But inflammation isn't the only silent force affecting arteries. There's another condition that's spreading rapidly across the world. Millions of people have it. Many don't know they do. And it often begins years before diabetes is diagnosed. Chapter 5. The blood sugar connection. When people hear the words heart disease, they often think about cholesterol. When they hear blood sugar, they think about diabetes. But modern research shows these two worlds are deeply connected. Every time we eat, the body carefully manages blood sugar with the help of insulin. Over time, however, some people develop insulin resistance. That means the body's cells don't respond to insulin as efficiently as they once did. To compensate, the pancreas produces more insulin. For years, blood sugar may still appear normal, yet beneath the surface, metabolism is gradually changing. Researchers have found that insulin resistance is associated with several conditions, including elevated triglycerides, lower HDL cholesterol, higher blood pressure, excess abdominal fat, and increased inflammation. Someone could have normal LDL cholesterol, yet still have several of these other risk factors. That's one reason modern prevention focuses on the whole person, not just one laboratory result. Chapter 6: The Risk You May Be Born With. Imagine two brothers. They eat similar meals, exercise together. Not all body fat behaves the same way. The fat stored deep inside the abdomen around organs is different. This visceral fat is metabolically active. It produces hormones that influence blood sugar and blood pressure. Sometimes what matters most isn't visible on the outside. By now you may be wondering, if inflammation and insulin resistance matter so much, why aren't they discussed as often as cholesterol? The answer is simple. Because cholesterol is easy to measure, but the next factor is even more complicated. In fact, many people inherit it from their parents without realizing it. Imagine two brothers. They eat similar meals, exercise together, have nearly identical cholesterol levels, yet one experiences a heart attack in his early 50s while the other lives into his 80s without major heart disease. Why? Sometimes the answer lies in genetics. One example is lipoprotein A, often written as LPA. Many people have never heard of it. Yet, experts estimate that elevated LPA affects roughly 1 in 5 people worldwide. Unlike LDL, LPA is primarily genetic. Healthy eating and exercise remain extremely important, but they may have only a modest effect on LPA levels. That's why someone with an excellent lifestyle and normal cholesterol can still carry inherited risk. Another marker is apolipoprotein B, or ApoB. Rather than measuring how much cholesterol is present, ApoB estimates the number of cholesterol-containing particles. Some researchers believe this provides deeper insight into risk. The key message isn't that everyone needs these tests. It's that cardiovascular risk is more complex than a single cholesterol number. We've uncovered inflammation. We've explored insulin resistance. We've examined genetics. So, does this mean cholesterol no longer matters? Not at all. In fact, the final chapter reveals why cholesterol remains important, but only when viewed as one piece of a much larger picture. Because preventing heart disease isn't about chasing one perfect number. It's about understanding the entire system. No background sound. As we've seen throughout this documentary, heart attacks are rarely caused by a single factor. They're usually the result of many small changes happening quietly over years, sometimes even decades. Cholesterol is part of that story, but it isn't always the entire story. Modern cardiology continues to show us that all these factors interact in ways that no single blood test can fully explain. That's why two people with nearly identical cholesterol levels can experience very different outcomes. One may live a lifetime without a major cardiovascular event. Another may face a heart attack despite years of normal test results. The lesson isn't that cholesterol doesn't matter. It absolutely does. The lesson is that heart health is bigger than one number. Real prevention comes from looking at the whole picture. Real prevention comes from looking at the whole picture rather than focusing on just one piece of the puzzle. If you remember only one message from today's documentary, let it be this. Don't wait for symptoms before you start taking care of your heart. Heart disease often develops silently, long before chest pain, long before shortness of breath, long before that unexpected trip to the emergency room. The encouraging news is that many of the factors we discussed today can be improved through consistent lifestyle choices and regular medical care. Small decisions made every day often become the biggest investments in your future health. because protecting your heart isn't something you do once. It's something you practice every single day. The goal of today's documentary wasn't to convince you that cholesterol doesn't matter. It was to show you that your heart is far more complex than a single number on a laboratory report. The healthiest decisions rarely come from fear. They come from understanding. And the more you understand how your body works, the better prepared you'll be to protect it for years to come. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which part of today's documentary surprised you the most? Was it learning that many heart attack patients have normal cholesterol? Was it the role inflammation may play? The connection between insulin resistance and heart disease? Or the fact that genetics can influence risk even when cholesterol appears normal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I personally read through your comments because they help me understand which health topics matter most to you. If today's documentary gave you a new perspective, the best way to support this channel is simple. Please take a moment to like this video. It helps YouTube recognize that this documentary is valuable and share it with more people who may benefit from evidence-based health information. And if you're passionate about understanding the science behind heart health, longevity, and disease prevention, I invite you to subscribe and become part of our growing community. Be sure to turn on notifications so you never miss a future documentary. Every week, we explore the latest scientific research and translate complex medical topics into clear, practical knowledge. Our goal isn't to create fear. Our goal is to replace confusion with understanding. Before you leave, I have one more request. If there's a health concern that's been on your mind, a symptom you've been experiencing, a medical topic you've always wanted explained, or a question you've never found a clear answer to, please leave it in the comment section. While I can't provide personal medical advice, I carefully review your questions and suggestions when planning future documentaries. If many viewers are asking about the same topic, I'll research the latest scientific evidence and create a dedicated documentary that explores it in depth. Your question might not only help you, it could help thousands of others searching for the very same answers. Because sometimes the question you're hesitant to ask is the exact question someone else has been waiting to hear answered. Before we say goodbye, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Your body is constantly sending you signals. Sometimes they're loud and impossible to ignore. Other times, they're so quiet that years can pass before you realize something has changed. The purpose of this channel isn't to create fear. It's to help you recognize those signals earlier, understand the science behind them, and make informed decisions before small problems become bigger ones. In a world filled with headlines and myths, choosing evidence-based knowledge is one of the greatest investments you can make for yourself and the people you love. Knowledge doesn't replace your healthcare provider, but it helps you ask better questions, make more informed decisions, and take a more active role in protecting your health. So until our next documentaries, take care of your heart, protect your health with knowledge, take care of the people you love. And remember, the best medicine doesn't begin in the pharmacy, it begins with understanding. I'll see you in the next documentary.